Welcome back to Flippity Flipped. If you've been following along, you're well aware of the fact that I have thousands of items in my death pile that have not been listed for sale. Well, the day is here. We're going to take a change of pace and talk about what has actually sold. So I'm going to do a recap of what sold in the last 60 days on eBay, Poshmark, and Facebook Marketplace. Yes, I do some local selling as well. And we'll talk about, what moved quickly, what took a long time to sell, and ultimately what kind of profit are we looking at. Let's dive right in and see what sold. See what's actually left the store instead of being added to the store. I've sorted them here by the oldest item I purchased. In the beginning here, you're going to hear about items that I bought a long time ago and that for any number of reasons took a long time to sell. So the first item is this really cute crossbody crochet bag. Not a super banger brand name by any means, but as you can see, I bought this truthfully when I very first started thrifting for resale. So about a year and a half ago in November 2023, I paid $1.72, which right off the bat tells me, knowing my spreadsheet for inventory as I do, this was something I got at the bins. And you can see I sold it for local pickup for $15. So because you don't pay any seller fees, any platform fees, no shipping, etc., we're looking at a net profit of $13.28. Our next item up is another oldie but a goodie, at least I think so. This is from this Adidas retro, probably 70s, 80s, like almost 40 to 50 years old. Can you believe it? Gym bag, super old school. It's got the old Adidas Trefoil logo on it. And I bought this at a family-run estate sale in Palm Springs, California when I was on vacation. Again, November 2023. You can see I only paid barely $1 for it. Everything at that estate sale was a really, really cheap price, which is why I shipped home a couple £100 of luggage. Sold it for $25. I kept dropping the price. Somehow I thought it would be worth more than that, but you know what? I just wanted it to be sold. So I was happy to take an offer of $25 and make $23.92 profit. This is a Revere ware, so a vintage stainless steel, pretty heavy duty skillet, 10 inches. No lid, but I paid about $4. Again, when I'm buying things in the US, of course, I have to convert those, at least for my purposes, into Canadian dollars. So came out to just over $4. Sold it for $25. So again, about a $21 profit on that item. Interestingly, with this one, I told you when I bought it a year and a half ago, but look at when I listed it. I sat on it. It sat in the death pile for ages, and I listed it only in February of this year. So it took a couple months to sell, but we got $25. The next one I got at a Salvation Army store in San Bernardino, California. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it is a home dry cleaning refill kit. I remember having this dry cleaning thing years ago, but you can see I paid again around $4 for it with the exchange rate back at that same time frame, November 2023. So was I an eager beaver to get started with my reselling? Yes, I was. Thrifting on vacation. This is our first eBay sale of the video. Sold it with shipping for $55.68. Yes, this buyer was in the Arctic part of Canada, so shipping, as you might imagine, it's already expensive in Canada, but when you're going to remote regions, it's even more. That's why the profit is a little bit lower on this particular one, despite the high sales price, is because there's no discounts on shipping for this one, even when you buy the eBay label. So cute. Another item I found in the bins down there in California about a year and a half ago. And you can see I paid about $2.50, sold it for just $10. Again, I've had it for a long time. You can see this one has been listed for over a year. Sold it on Marketplace and made a $7.47 profit.
So it's a really cute story, but look at the profit, right? I'm sure it's cute. But when you're spending that time to make a listing, when there's things like this behind you that aren't selling, you need to be making more money. So you can't list something that's gonna make you like 10 bucks. So that's something we've learned from, and we're gonna talk about in a future video of what we've done wrong and some poor profit items.
This one is a bins item. So again, in the video today, this is our first Poshmark sale. So if you haven't figured out, I do list, or I have in the past, listed on eBay, Poshmark, and Facebook Marketplace. I'll talk at the end about why I'm rethinking that strategy. For now though, we paid $1.86 at the Goodwill bins here in Calgary, and I sold it on Poshmark for $15. I took an offer. Not a huge profit, but still a profit, $9.19. And a really easy shipper. Just, it's in its little plastic bag, throw it in a poly mailer, good to go. This item, if you watched my last video, you'll recognize it because I sold it just over this past few days to someone on Facebook Marketplace. So another bins item from quite a long time ago that has been listed for quite a long time. I accepted a $15 cash offer and made a profit of almost $14 on this item. The next one is, again, from my early days of thrifting. So did I have a lot to learn? Yes. Do I still have a lot to learn? Those of you who've watched my other videos would say yes about responsible thrifting. In any case, this was from a Value Village store. So that is the Canadian equivalent of your Savers stores in the US, for those who are familiar with that chain of thrift stores. I paid only $1.46. This was back in the day, you can tell from the purchase date, before the thrift stores really started raising their prices the way they are now. Anyway, $1.46, took an offer for $10 and made a profit of $8.50. So again, another Poshmark sale. This is a Tory Burch little crossbody bag. I actually sold this many months ago on Poshmark, shipped it to the buyer, and they registered a complaint with Poshmark because I had called it, I can't even remember now. I had said it was blue and they said it was purple, or I said it was purple and they said it was blue. I can't even remember. And I took photos in all different kinds of light. And those of you who are into photography at all, you'll know that sometimes certain colors are just really hard to capture accurately on film. Well, that was the case with this particular item. So the buyer returned it, and I was, okay with that as long as I get my item back. I waited a while because actually this one got a lot of spammers on Facebook Marketplace as well for some reason. Anyway, finally relisted it, and you can see it sat for a while, but it did sell. So I was happy to take an offer for $32 and get this kind of a, problem child of an item out of my store, and at the same time make a little $17 profit. Really cute vintage set of solid brass, little small rocking horses. They're only a couple inches high. Put a lot of different keywords in the title, as you can see, and eventually accepted an offer of $18. Basically doubled my money. I paid $7 for these two little guys and sold them for $18 after the Poshmark fees. I was left with about a $7 profit. Another one that I bought actually on the same day at the Goodwill is this little brass mouse. So he's a little bit bigger than the other two. He's about 5¼ inches tall. Again, vintage solid brass little figurine. He was only $3.50 and sold him for $18. So a little bit more profit. Still not a banger item by any means, but a little bit more profit there. The next item up is my first foray into trying retail arbitrage. So I had watched videos, of course, of other resellers going into, big box stores like TJ Maxx or Ross or things like that. And I went, and we have a store called Winners in Canada, which is a similar theme. Anyway, it was after the season. You can see I bought this in February of last year. And they were clearing out all kinds of dog coats, raincoats, sweaters, things like that. So I thought, you know what? It was a pretty low buy-in price. So invested $8.40 into this little doggy raincoat. And you can see it did sell on Poshmark for $22. So Poshmark, of course, has higher fees, if you're not aware of that, than eBay. So by the time they take their cut, I was left with $9.20. But again, got my money back and a $9 profit. Would I do it again? Not anytime soon. This next pair of shoes I have been holding on to for over a year. So bought them in February, and check it out. I actually listed them within a few days of purchasing them. So back then I was, a little more on my game of trying to do more consistent listing. Paid only 95 cents at the Goodwill bins and sold them for $20. Local pickup on Facebook Marketplace. So that's a tidy profit of $19. 20x your money, not bad. This next sweater was a Goodwill Bins purchase and a sale on eBay. So you can see I bought it last year, listed it about a month after I bought it. Again, paid 95 cents. If you've heard 95 cents before, this is obviously from that same Goodwill Bins haul where the average cost per item came out to that 95-cent mark. So with shipping, this one sold for $51.71 to a buyer in the US. And with the shipping discount and all of the fees and things, I ended up with a $38 profit. So 95 cents into a $38 profit. Pretty happy with those margins. Kokopelli metal art. So I had to learn about Kokopelli. I was always attracted to this style. I am a huge fan of the desert in the US. I love the heat when it's 110 degrees in Nevada and Arizona and the desert part of California. I've seen a lot of this type of art. It was purchased at Value Village, so I paid up a little bit. Well, no, I didn't. $3.66. I must have had a coupon. Anyway, sold it locally, Facebook Marketplace, for $30, so a $26 profit. This next one was such a fun find. I was at the Goodwill Bins, picking through a kitchen type bin, and I saw one of these spoons. So I was like, oh, I was attracted probably to one of the bright colors, picked it up, noticed the rivets in the handle, and it felt heavy. So I thought, oh, this seems like a good quality piece. You know, there I am in the Goodwill trying to look at it under the light to catch the brand name. And sure enough, it was a really high value item. So I spent the next, I'm going to say 10 minutes, maybe even 15, scrounging around and digging through the rest of that particular bin to see how many of this set I could find. Well, as you can see here, the 8th one was nowhere to be found, so I had a set of 7. But I accepted on eBay a $54 offer. So this set of spoons cost me $1.21. And with shipping, the total sales price was $79.61, leaving me a profit of $55 on these very cute spoons. They actually have a little bee on the side. And the buyer was thrilled to pick these up and complete a set that they had started when they actually traveled to France. This one is a sale from 2025. It was listed at the beginning of the year. So they were $1 per glass at the thrift. I think this was at the Wynn's thrift store where I went the other video on the 50% off day. With shipping, the total purchase price was $76. These are Dansk, so European, a little bit rare, and oval shaped glasses. So really nice for serving up a cocktail or a highball drink or something like that. My profit that I was left with is just over $50. So 2 into 50. I'll take that any day of the week. And next one is another glasses sale. Same day when I went to a different Wynn's location, one of the ladies working in the store was kind enough when she saw me looking at glassware to point these out. And as soon as I saw them, I was like, ooh, these are interesting. They have kind of these grooves in the base of the martini glass. Tried to be a little creative with my photography in terms of showing this off to its best advantage. And so you can see for the 2 glasses, I actually had a set of 6. And a buyer reached out to me on Poshmark asking if I would sell only 2 because she didn't want to pay the price I was asking for all 6 of them. So I thought to myself, well, again, some money is better than no money. And if I sell 2, I still have a set of 4, which is quite sellable, left. We landed on a deal of $40 for the 2 glasses. So I was left after Poshmark fees with a net profit of $29. And I still have 4 more to sell, which reminds me, I need to get those listed ASAP. This is also, I guess, a bit of a bolo for those of you who don't shop for salt and pepper shakers. This particular brand, Peugeot, I think is how you say it, French, sell for really good money. They're obviously very excellent quality, and I actually had to look it up. Is it the same brand as the Peugeot who makes automobiles? And yes, it is. Apparently they have a salt and pepper division. Sold them for $97.31. So that left me a tidy profit of almost $70. The next one is a favorite item of mine as well. And I have to admit, I was tempted to keep it, but I found this little buffalo, red glass Murano art buffalo. in the Wins thrift. So you can see they recognized he was a nice item, so he was more expensive than your $1 or $2, but for $6 I knew I had a special piece of art. I looked up comps right there in the store and saw that one had sold on eBay, and so I priced it at $99. I did put this one on all 3 platforms, and you can see it sold quickly. If it was only listed in February of this year and it's already sold, it sold just within a couple of months for my full asking price of $99 cash, local pickup, and I made $93.
Another comment just while I'm editing here. This is the reason that I love listing breakables, because you will get something small, like a little piece of glass, and it'll be worth like $100. That is why it's the market for it. The profit is crazy compared to the last time I talked about an item.
This next one is, again, something that I need to be doing more of. So you can see I bought it over a year ago and listed it fairly quickly after buying it in February 2024. It sat on eBay and, may have had some people look at it or some watchers even, but it wasn't selling. So I watched a video, shout out to one of my favorite YouTubers, Lavender Clothesline. I love her channel. Her and Roger, Karen and Roger, are just fantastic. If you don't know them, check them out. Anyway, I decided to, based on her advice and something she said in her video, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go on eBay and I'm going to end listing on some of my higher priced items that have been on there for ages and sell similar. So what that does, if you're not aware of that on eBay, is it gives it a brand new item number, which will of course help in the search function to push it up higher in the rankings so that more eyes will get on your item. Well, it obviously worked in this case because shortly thereafter, I was able to sell these. So purchased for $6.29 and sold for $75.43 with the shipping, netting me a profit of just over $46. So end and sell similar is something I'm definitely going to be more actively doing on my eBay store. I found these in the Goodwill the Goodwill store, pardon me. Found them for $3.50 each. I had 2 of the same as what you're seeing here. I listed them separately because I thought they were duplicates. I thought, I don't know that people need 2 sets of the same group of 24 Easter wooden vintage ornaments. So they both sold after Easter, interestingly enough, because I did not get on my game and list them before the actual holiday. Goes to show you, and many have said in the past in other videos, holiday stuff can sell all year round, whether it's Halloween, Christmas, Easter. So don't necessarily think you have to hold on to those items before you list them in your store. Short story on this one, paid $7 for the 2 sets. And combined with shipping, the 2 of them sold to 2 different buyers for $77.10. So again, a quick profit of $46 on these 2 little, fairly easy to ship items. You may have heard in one of my past videos, if you've been watching, that Nathan found 2 Harvey the Hound Calgary Flames NHL mascots. We're thrilled to report that they both sold within 2 weeks, so fast sellers. Sold them including shipping for $103.45, again to 2 different buyers in the US, shout out to my US buyers, and netted us a profit of $72.03. What I want to show just to end the video, those were the sales that we've had in the last 60 days. I did a bit of analytics. I have, for those of you who may not have seen my very first video, I've retired from a corporate career, so I have a fair amount of experience in corporate business, finance, things like that. Based on just this 60-day snapshot of sales, how did my 3 different platforms perform? So what you're seeing in the graph on the left-hand side of your screen is that I had the most number of items sell on Facebook Marketplace in the blue, the least item on Poshmark, and sort of middle of the line, the green bar, which is eBay. However, when you look at the right-hand side of this slide, I was also curious to see what was my net profit on each of the platforms, because as I've mentioned in this video, the platforms have, of course, different selling fees. Facebook Marketplace doesn't have any fees. I don't have to deal with shipping. I don't do shipping on Marketplace. So there's different dynamics at play when you're starting to look at profit. While Poshmark had a decent number of sales, the profit on those sales is considerably less than on the other two platforms. Facebook Marketplace, modest profit. Again, not necessarily, well, except for that beautiful glass art, buffalo, not selling a lot of high ticket items typically on Marketplace. But my key point of this slide that I'm finally getting to is, while eBay may not have had the highest number of items sell, it is by far the highest amount of net profit on those items. So here's today's lesson. I'm going to focus. I think part of my issue with not being motivated to list and letting this death pile grow to the size it has become is that I was trying to list everything on all three platforms, which, cross-listing software, I'm very aware of it. I know it exists. It's, in my opinion, not great for Canada. So, and it didn't have all the features for the cost it was going to be per month to help me manage my inventory. And so I just was not ready to commit to a cross-listing software, which means I was manually listing these items on 3 different platforms. Second and third time makes it easier. You do the eBay first. But what I've come to conclude is to really tackle this death pile and do it in the most efficient and hopefully profitable way possible, I am strictly going to focus on eBay, with a few exceptions for Poshmark if it's like a high fashion item or a really high value designer brand, because I still believe that's the roots of the Poshmark selling platform. And potentially some items on Facebook Marketplace that may be too heavy to ship or have certainly a local appeal, like anything to do with cowboy and western and our stampede coming up in Calgary in July. So that's my conclusion, is I'm going to streamline. I'm going to be a little bit more choosy in what I put on each platform with a strong focus on eBay. One final thought. I have seen some of you in my comments expressing serious and valid concerns about the size of my death pile and asking me, why do I still go thrifting even when I have thousands of items that are not listed for sale? So I do want to respond and assure you that in no way am I condoning or promoting this business model for anyone who's looking to get into reselling or is already in the reselling game. The truth of the matter is the 60-day snapshot I just showed you of the sales and the profit margin, the margins are huge. For this particular 60-day period, my net profit was 658% of what I paid for those items that sold. And if you look at it in a different financial metric, my profit margin, which means for every dollar of sales, how much of that is profit, is about 69% over this period. Granted, it's only a 60-day snapshot, but it's pretty indicative, because I do keep meticulous financial records. It's pretty indicative of what the last 18 months have looked like. So I genuinely appreciate everyone's concern and absolutely acknowledge that I let the death pile get out of control. But I just want you to all rest assured and not be too worried about me that financially speaking, this is not a hardship. And with Nathan here helping me in particular over the summer, we are going to dig our way out of this, and I do not intend to continue with this model going forward. So thanks again to all of you for your concern, and rest assured we're going to bring you along on the journey and share future sales as well, so you can see how it's all paying off with potential profit. I want to say how grateful I am to all of you who have helped build up my channel so quickly. I look forward to continuing on this journey with you, and we'll see you in the next video.